Last year, almost all crime fell because all the ne'er-do-wells were in lockdown. But one crime soared to record levels: rape. In the 12 months up to June this year, there were 61,158 rapes in England and Wales. That's the highest number ever recorded. And the rate accelerated through the spring. What's going on here? Peter Bleksley is a former detective with Scotland Yard, and we're grateful to have him. Peter, what is the reason for this staggering number?
Well, first of all, may I apologise to you and the viewers, because if it sounds like I'm speaking from a war zone, I am in South London. Of course, it's bonfire night. So there's a lot of fireworks going off, but I've closed all the windows, closed all the doors, and I'm doing my best. So forgive me. Back to your question.
You're not in Helmand province, I take it. That's great, Peter. What's going on with these rape statistics?
Well, there are a number of factors at play here, I think. These figures were compiled, generally speaking, before the tragic and awful murder of Sarah Everard and Sabina Nessa. So there is an element of people at that point having greater confidence in coming forward and reporting crimes of a sexual nature. Now, there had been a trend of that, and of course, that is to be welcomed, albeit, of course, on the flip side, there is a woefully low conviction rate in terms of the number of rapes being reported. And that has been recognised by the government as a matter of serious concern, and some steps, I hope, are going to be taken to try and address that. It's a complex matter, how the police investigate it, how the Crown Prosecution present the cases, and how, in fact, the court deals with it. There are problems there. Another aspect of crime which soared throughout the lockdown was, of course, fraud. And that is really an epidemic proportions, because so many criminals, being confined to their homes, actually turn to their laptops to commit crime. And that level of crime is off the Richter scale. So many millions of people are becoming victims of fraud as well.
Yeah, that's becoming an increasingly common problem simply by the nature of the world we live in, where we open up a computer and give it all kinds of information that we wouldn't necessarily give to a human being. But the rape statistics are interesting. You talked about the relatively small number of convictions. And feminists always say, for example, only about an eighth of rapes are ever reported. A couple of years ago, the official statistic for those rapes complaints that were ever criminally prosecuted, it was 1.7%. So isn't it entirely rational, if you're inclined that way, in the modern United Kingdom, to be a rapist? Because if only a sixth get reported, and if only 1.7% of those that are reported get criminally prosecuted, you've literally got a 99.9% chance of getting away with this.
The courts, the prosecution service and the police have struggled on this front, despite police setting up specialist sexual offences units. And that's something that we should welcome. But still, these prosecution and conviction levels are at stubbornly low figures. Something clearly has to be done, but this is across the criminal justice system that this is an issue. Is there an issue about witnesses being believed? I think that is also a factor. But whatever it may be, I would urge anybody who is the victim of any kind of crime whatsoever to please set aside the current trend of a lack of confidence in the police, and please step forward and report that crime. It is only by crime being accurately reported that the police can get some kind of picture as to what priorities they should focus on. And of course, policing priorities is a hot potato, because the British police in recent times have become a one-stop shop for all of society's ills. And in many regards, some major crime is not getting the focus I believe it should have.
Well, that's a very polite way, Peter, of putting what to many people is a big complaint about the police, that if you make a transphobic tweet, they'll send 3 officers round to your house. But if you're in one of these miserable communities where there are all these euphemistically called grooming gangs, the police won't do anything. I mean, surely at a certain level, you don't need to have more reported crime to figure that a policeman should be taking rape more seriously than an ill-phrased joke about Nelson Mandela's death on Twitter.
Crime is crime, and I understand some crimes will be perceived as being, and indeed are, more serious than others. But hate crime is on the statute book. It's something that needs to be prosecuted, and of course is a policing priority. But our British police are really at a crossroads now, I feel. And we do have, of course, the Casey inquiry into the standards and of the Metropolitan Police. The findings of that will be extremely interesting. But I revert to what I said not so long ago, in so much as that the police are now that one-stop shop for all of society's ills, from people ludicrously dialing 999 to report the fact that they've had the incorrect pizza topping delivered to them. And I'm not being flippant here. Unfortunately, because of a decade of austerity, many other public services were cut back as almost as much as the police were. So out of hours, for example, if somebody is in a mental health crisis, it is probably going to fall upon the police to have to deal with that person. And really, the police shouldn't be. So much time is hoovered up with dealing with mental health crises that they really are detracted away from crime.
No, but Peter, with the best will in the world, it's not just the public turning to the police for that. The police have embraced that role. They had all these vans out, I think it was in Merseyside a few months ago, saying that being offensive is an offence, which actually isn't true in English law. I mean, all kinds of people are offensive. I'm offensive routinely. You may have been offensive to people. But they're driving around as if they're trying to drive up traffic about rude Facebook posts with huge vans saying being offensive is an offence. And at the same time, as we've seen in Rotherham and Telford, there are basically the local grooming gangs become institutions that take young English girls as child sex slaves for years on end. The police, obviously, at a certain level, the police seem to find it easier just to go around policing everybody's Facebook posts.
Well, firstly, let's deal with that Merseyside situation. It didn't take that police force very long to realise the folly of their ways, and there was a quick retraction and an apology, and I hope that they focused more on tackling crime than something which, quite frankly, was ludicrous.
But Peter, some idiot chief constable or assistant chief constable signed off on that and paid money to some graphics design company to come up with that idiotic slogan. So there's a problem in some ways right at the top with British policing right now. And meanwhile, at the bottom, there is this very real situation of rising sexual assaults. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Peter. I'm very grateful to you.